Hi YouTube. Today I'm going to be talking about my playthrough of Dark Souls 2. I quickly want to go over the sort of rules that I played the game by, since I used Cheat Engine to spawn in basically all of the twin blades in the game, since I wanted to do a playthrough with the twin blade weapon. So I'll quickly go over some of the things just to make it all make sense. So the rule number one is obviously I can only use twin blades as my primary weapon, so I went ahead and spawned those with Cheat Engine at the beginning of the game. The other thing that I used Cheat Engine for was for bonfire aesthetics, so that I could respec my character as many times as I needed, since that would allow me to sort of freely swap between the twin blades. Otherwise, I don't know. I've never been much of a fan of having to use this like very limited thing to respec. So for my own enjoyment, I basically made respecs free, and I used pretty much a decent chunk of the twin blades. There's like one or two that I didn't use, but I used like probably the more well-known ones, like the more amongst the twin blade meta, I guess, if there is one. Lastly, at the very beginning, I used Cheat Engine to spawn the ring that basically makes my character look human, since I think that the hollowed character looks absolutely disgusting. However, about halfway through the game, losing a ring slot to just to not look hideous, um, it's kind of a big deal. Like you can do a lot with one ring slot. So I found a mod uh, at some point in the game. I want to say roughly half, and I just went ahead and installed that so that I can use all four of my ring slots. Another thing that I did was essentially, how do I describe this? I I made it so that I can spawn in upgrade material, so Titanite, to reach the max weapon level that I could get normally. So if I'm at a stage of the game where I can get a weapon to, let's say, +2 with regular Titanite, any other twin blade that uses regular Titanite, I can get to +2. That way, kind of like I mentioned before, I can kind of freely swap between them and try them out. And this applies to other upgrade materials. So the twin blade I ended up using was the Dragon Rider one, which needs petrified dragon bones. I can't remember if there was another twin blade that needs that specific material, but I did want to mention that I did spawn in Titanite to basically hit the max level that I could get a weapon for another, with the upgrade types that I've used for another weapon. I hope I described this properly, but that's basically what I did. Before I start going over the positives and the negatives of the game, I do quickly want to compare it to the games that came before it in terms of FromSoft games. So in this case, it would be Demon Souls and Dark Souls 1. Now, for anyone that might have seen my sort of thoughts video on Demon Souls and Dark Souls 1, you would have known that I'm not a huge fan of either of those games. Um, I would say that I probably like Demon Souls slightly more than Dark Souls 1, but both of those games share the same type of issues. They have annoying levels, they have lackluster bosses. They both actually lack omnidirectional rolling, unless you are talking about the PS5 remake of Demon Souls. But as I mentioned in that video, I'm actually not a big fan of the PS5 version, just because they changed so much stuff that in my opinion, it just, to me, that is the inferior version. But that's neither near nor there. Uh, Now, I do want to kind of compare Dark Souls 2 to these two games. And one thing I find kind of fascinating is Dark Souls 2 is obviously the game that everyone just by default automatically hates. And I find it kind of strange because most people still to this day will glaze Dark Souls 1 and call it a masterpiece and say it's just this incredible game. Where um, personally, for me, I would rather play through Dark Souls 2 than through Dark Souls 1. I'll try to, throughout the video, talk about the reasons why. But I did sort of want to have this little section where I compare Dark Souls 2 to its previous entries. I actually think that the very notable shift from a more slower type of game that's more kind of exploration based, which are Demon Souls and Dark Souls 1, whereas Dark Souls 3 and beyond are more fast paced, combat oriented games. And I feel like Dark Souls 2 is kind of the in between of this. Um, but I don't really just understand all the hate that this game gets. Like anyone that says that Dark Souls 2 is horrible, by default, they should also probably dislike, at the very least, dislike Dark Souls 1. Um, because some of the, at least in my opinion, the problems that Dark Souls 2 has, Dark Souls 1 also has them. Again, bad bosses, annoying areas, like just poorly designed areas, horrible runbacks. So a lot of the things that are bad about Dark Souls 2 are, in my opinion, actually worse than Dark Souls 1. Um, and to give Dark Souls 2 a little bit of credit, it has cooler weapons. It has more interesting mechanics like power stancing. I will admit that the healing system in Dark Souls 2 is absolutely broken. More broken than even kindling to 20 Estus flasks in Dark Souls 1. Like, life gems are just the most overpowered thing that this series has ever seen, in my opinion. But I'll get into that later. But that's pretty much it for this section. So I'll start with the things I liked about the game. For one, again, relative to the previous entries, it does have omnidirectional rolling, which is a standard nowadays, but that alone, to me, makes the game a lot more enjoyable than Dark Souls 1. Just being able to roll in all directions. I know that Dark Souls 2 kind of drops the ball. Not kind of, definitely drops the ball with the adaptability stat being tied to the iframes of your roll. But I think even with that stupid, horrible decision, I would still rather deal with adaptability and have omnidirectional rolling than with whatever like Dark Souls 1 and Demon Souls had. Like, it for me, when I was playing those games, the only time I could really feel like I had control over my role was when I was not locked on. Like, the moment I locked on in DS1 and Demon Souls, like, it's just like a 50-50 whether I roll in the complete opposite direction that I want to. Briefly mentioned it in the beginning of the video, but I do think that Dark Souls 2 has a lot of cool weapons, cool and interesting weapons. And it also has power stancing, which is a really cool mechanic. I can't remember if that came back in Elden Ring or not, but it definitely was not in Dark Souls 3. And I'm not sure why. This is like probably one of the coolest mechanics that Dark Souls 2 has. So I'm not sure why they never brought that back, but that is really nice about Dark Souls 2. Another thing that's actually pretty nice is the bonfire aesthetic system, which lets you essentially rematch bosses, I believe, in their next new game cycle. I'm surprised this never came back in any of the later entries. I also think it's really cool. Dark Souls 2 also has some things that sort of incentivize the player to play beyond just New Game Plus Zero. There are certain armors, I believe, and just certain items, weapons as well. Like, I believe Moonlight Greatsword is like this, that can only be obtained in later New Game cycles. Now, I will admit this is a little bit of a double-edged sword. Like, if you wanted to do a playthrough with like the Moonlight Greatsword, I mean, you're pretty much gonna need to be like what New Game Plus 3, because by the time you get the Moonlight Greatsword in New Game Plus 1, which I believe is through Freya, the spider boss, you've already played like a decent chunk of the game, right? This is why, kind of, in my playthrough, I did the cheat engine sort of route where I just kind of hacked in all the weapons for the weapon class that I wanted to use and just went from there. And this is something I usually do with this type of game. I didn't really do it in Dark Souls 1 because I guess I'm just too stupid to figure out how to work cheat engine in Dark Souls Remastered. And B, honestly, no matter what weapon you use in that game, whether you're using the Cestus or the Whip or something overpowered, um, the second half of the game is going to be miserable to play through no matter what, and most of the bosses are going to be underwhelming regardless. So I just opted to try to get a Black Knight weapon drop in that game and just get it over with. But I did, I kind of went off a tangent there. But yeah, that is also a cool mechanic to incentivize you to do New Game Plus run. But I did want to acknowledge that depending on the person or the situation, it's not necessarily a full positive. Now, to Dark Souls 2's credit, it does have a lot of bosses, which is nice. Now, this will be something that I go over in the negatives. I think most bosses in Dark Souls 2 are also pretty bad, but it does have a high quantity of bosses. So I'll give it a little bit of credit there. Another big positive for this game, and I got to give a huge shout out to this, is the DLC. I think Dark Souls 2 has probably the best DLC in the trilogy. Like in terms of how much content you get and just the overall quality of that DLC. I think the DLC is actually quite good. That does not mean that there are no negative aspects of it. Like, for example, the Grave Robber fight in the, what is it, Shulva Temple? I could be, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Uh, like that boss is total trash. But like overall, the overall package for the Dark Souls 2 DLC is actually really good. Now I'll talk about some of the negatives that I have with the game. The big obvious one for me is adaptability. This was just such a terrible idea, and you can get your character to the point that you'll have a consistent role, but you need to invest like a good 15 to 20 points uh, into adaptability so that your role is even remotely consistent. And it just feels like shit. Like, investing, even if it's just 15 levels, um, investing that many levels into a stat just to have a working role is stupid. There's a reason why this never came back in not only any future FromSoft game, but any future Souls game that I've played. It's because it's just a horrible, horrible idea. Having an inconsistent role and then just kind of punishing the player and requiring this sort of level tax to have a working role. Second issue I have with Dark Souls 2 is the life gem situation. I mentioned earlier in the video, life gems are completely overpowered. I think they totally break the game. This type of healing should really not exist, in my humble opinion, in any of these games. And it's kind of similar to the issue that Demon Souls faced, where if given enough time, you can walk into any situation the game throws at you with essentially infinite healing. And Dark Souls 2 is no different. If you have enough time to farm, you can just go into any given area or any given fight with 50 life gems, 60 life gems. And we're not even talking about the different kinds of life gems because there's the regular life gems and then there's like the radiant ones, which just heal for more. The other reason why life gems are just so nuts is because their animation is actually really fast, and you actually get to slightly move a little bit, as opposed to the Estus animation, which is actually tied to adaptability as well, which sucks. So when you first boot up the game and you have very low adaptability, to drink from an Estus takes like 50 years. It is such a terrible decision, and it's sort of compounded with how powerful life gems are. Now, admittedly, I did abuse life gems. I could have done a no life gem playthrough. It's entirely possible to do, but I don't know. I'm lazy, I guess, so I didn't do that. That doesn't mean that life gems are not broken. They're absolutely overpowered. Uh, they just totally break the game, and it is definitely a net negative. Another sort of weird thing about Dark Souls 2, and I'm gonna actually put this in the negatives, is that now this never happened in my playthrough because I never like farmed anything, but if someone is, for example, like completely opposed to using cheat engine, or maybe they're playing on console or whatever, after you kill enough enemies, like let's say you're trying to farm like a weapon drop, um, after you kill enough of a certain enemy, they will despawn, and you would have to use a bonfire ascetic to bring them back. Now, guys, a bonfire ascetic is a rare item. This is not something that, to my knowledge, you can easily get, right? So, and the reason why I wanted to mention this is because way back in the day, I did a whip playthrough, and I wanted to, get all the whips. And there is an enemy in Huntsman's Copse that has a whip. and I farmed this enemy until it despawned, and it did not drop the whip. Um, which kind of this kind of ties into the second issue because they're kind of connected. Is that while I mentioned earlier that Dark Souls 2 has a lot of cool weapons, some of the drop rates for these weapons are absolutely disgusting. Like their weapon drops have no business being this rare. Like for example, also in Huntsman's Cops, there's that sort of fat enemy with a sickle. I think the weapon is called. I'm going off of memory, so I could be saying the wrong name, but I think it's called like the Moonlight Sickle, something like that. And the drop rate on that is also disgustingly low. And I remember going through to the wiki and looking through the comments that everyone's talking about how horrible it is to farm this. I'm totally cool with having weapon drops from enemies, but I don't know exactly what the drop rates are, but it's pretty obvious that they're way too low. So it's like you have a positive, which you'll have cool weapon drops the enemies can drop, but the drop rate is like sub 1% or something. So I obviously this is not something that's really ever going to get fixed, but I really do wish that the drop rates for the weapons were higher because if you kill an enemy enough to despawn it and it doesn't drop the weapon, in my opinion, that drop rate is way too low. Now, this negative is one that's kind of general, and it's kind of one of the, I would say, the main reasons that you'll see online that people hate Dark Souls 2, and it's like the enemy placement and the enemy mob density. Now, there are areas where the enemy mob density is definitely a problem. I'm not denying that, but I actually don't think it's as bad as people really make it out to be. Um, but I'll talk about some sections that I think are just crap when it comes to game design. The first one that I ran into was in, I believe it was Lost Bastille, and it's right near the start of it when you go down a ladder, and there's sort of this. After you go down the ladder, there's kind of this like open, semi-open room, and a pursuer spawns there, and there are I want to say at least four to five dog enemies, and there are soldier enemies on top of these like wooden towers that shoot projectiles at you. So I just picture the situation. We have a boss, four to five dogs, and enemies in high ground shooting shit at you. This was like truly the first moment in my playthrough where I was legitimately on full tilt. I was like, yeah, like this game blows. Obviously now, like that I'm not on tilt, I don't think the game as general blows, but like that specific section most certainly does. You have other like more well-known ones like the Smelter Demon Runback. The Smelter Demon Runback is notable for being disgusting. I'm not going to defend it. It sucks. I think Smelter Demon is a great boss, but the Runback blows. The Runback blows chunks. There's no reason for it to be this miserable. Which is also compounds with another issue with Dark Souls 2, which is being able to take damage when you're going through the illusory wall. And this would happen very often with the Smelter Demon run back, where you run past the bazillion enemies that are in your way to get back to the boss, and then one of the archers in the back, or one of the Sonic Speed um, Alon Knights, I think that's what they are, Alon Knights, will tag you and either cancel your animation to go fight the boss, or I believe they can do damage to you and you can go to the boss with a big ass health tax. So, and this kind of bleeds into a more general problem is that some of the boss runbacks in Dark Souls 2 are criminally bad. Like some of the worst the series has ever seen. Like I was hard complaining on my Dark Souls 1 video how the Nito runback is like one of the shittest runbacks in my opinion. But Dark Souls 2 actually has Dark Souls 1 beat when it comes to some of these runbacks. They are so bad, and I'm not ashamed to say it. There come a point late in the game where I this happened with Dark Lurker. So I'll actually go into this tangent now. For anyone that doesn't know, to if you died to Dark Lurker, so okay, let me just start from the beginning. To fight Dark Lurker, which is a hidden boss in the game, you have to do these sort of four mini levels, and once you've, I think it's three actually, not four. Whether it's three or four, it doesn't matter. Basically, once you're at the last one, whenever you finish the mini level and you sort of light this torch, you fall down this hole, and then you can fight Dark Lurker. And if you die, you have to do that last level again to fight Dark Lurker again. Now, keep in mind that to even walk into these levels, you have to use a human effigy, which, to my knowledge, there's a limited number of these in the game. Now, I don't care if the game has 300, 400, 500 human effigies. I just don't think a game should punish a player with the use of a finite resource to try a boss. Okay? Because, like, I'm not even that great at these games. And to me, like, the whole point of these games is that if a boss is wrecking you, even if it takes you 500 tries, the whole point of the game is to improve at the given, against the given boss and overcome it. And Dark Souls 2 making you use an effigy and then making you do this level, which these levels, guys, like these levels are horrible, horrible, horrible levels, which brings back the previous complaint of the gank fights. They are these areas where you're basically fighting human NPC enemies for the most part, and I believe there are these like mage enemies, and most of these are not a 1v1. So these below chunks, I hate these. If you only have to do them once, sure, fair enough. I can accept them for what they are. But having to do one of these just to try out the Dark Lurker fight, I think is complete trash. So there came a point where I was getting smoked by Dark Lurker. Like, maybe I'm horrible in the game. And it took me like 8 attempts or something. I don't know. I'm going off of memory. Like, let's just say 8 to 10 attempts. And there came a point where I was like, I am not doing this level anymore. I'm not. This sucks. Okay. And I basically save scummed. I save and quit it in front of Dark Lurker, and then I, backed up my save file. And if Dark Lurker killed me, it was actually less annoying to close the game, reopen, put the save backup into the Dark Souls 2 folder, reopen the game. That was less obnoxious and less annoying than going through that level again. So the Dark Lurker run back, because that's kind of what the run back is. You have to do this friggin' Dark Realm level before you get to fight it. Is, I think, one of the worst the series I've ever seen. But the sad thing is that it's not even just that one. Like, you have the run back to the Grave Robber fight in the DLC through, I believe it's called the Cave of the Dead, full of these, you know, statues that can petrify you, which is basically a one hit. Thankfully, it doesn't work like Curse in Dark Souls 1 that it like permanently reduces your health, but it is a one hit. Like if your petrification meter, to my knowledge, gets maxed out, you're dead. And like what awaits you at the end of this absolutely miserable area, a dog shit gank fight with three NPC mobs. I did say that the quality of the DLC was good in Dark Souls 2, and I still stand by this. It is, but that specific fight is ass. And then you have like the Smelter Demon rematch in another DLC, where it also has one of the worst runbacks the series has ever seen through Iron Passage, in which you have these like I'm just gonna call them mages, these enemies that basically make you fat roll, and it's like the runback is already full of enemies. There's no way any sane person is going to actually clear out these rooms every attempt against Smelter Demon. So, what are you gonna do? You're gonna run past all this shit, but then and like the devs made sure to make that run back as miserable as possible. Okay, and it's a shame because even though it's a reskin fight, I mentioned it before. I think that Smelter Demon is a great fight, but that run back is ass. Both Smelter Demon runbacks are absolutely horrible. And for example, you have the run back. I think it's called Dragon Shrine, If you want to fight the big ass like Elder Dragon, I forget exactly what it's called, but you have to basically do the whole Dragon Shrine. And the way, to my knowledge, the Dragon Shrine is set up is now you can run past stuff, but I believe what happens now. I'm just gonna leave a disclaimer here because I could be wrong. I could be 100% wrong here. But the way I understood that this works is that if there's all these like small knights littered across the area, and then there's usually a big enemy. If you run past the big enemy, it's gonna aggro all of the smaller knights. Like the smaller knights will not aggro to you as long as you do the 1v1 with the big enemy. But if you run past it, they will all aggro. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Regardless, even if I'm wrong here, you basically have to run from the beginning of the area all the way to the top. And to fight what? Another shit boss. The big elder dragon in that area. It's an absolute trash boss. I'll go over it in more detail when I go through the boss section. But that's another trash runback. Then there's like the big obvious one, which is in the other DLC. All three DLCs have terrible, horrible runbacks. Is Frigid Outskirts. Like, what the hell were they smoking when they made this? I have no idea. But this is, commonly known as like one of the worst areas like the genre has ever seen. So, yeah, just another terrible, terrible runback. This whole sort of tangent initially started with the enemy density. I can't think of like a really, really horrible, truly like section. Actually, I can think of one in the DLC. In the Iron King DLC, there's this room with, I swear it's like seven enemies or something that you're supposed to kind of like lead these like exploding barrel guys to hopefully blow up, and maybe take some of the enemies out. But this room to me has always, I've never forgotten this room since the first time I did it. I don't know what they were thinking. This is horrible. There's just no way that this is properly balanced for you to drop down here and fight like eight enemies at once. There are probably countless other examples. I'm not going to go into each one. Um, I'll probably, more of these will come to my mind once I go through sort of the areas. Normally, I don't go through the areas, but I do think that some of the areas in Dark Souls 2 are complete trash, and I just want to go over them. I'll quickly go over the areas. I mean, some areas I won't have too much to say, but I'll kind of give like a small opinion on it. So the first area people are usually going to do is the Force of the Fallen Giants. It's a decent enough starting area. Um, there's nothing about it that I particularly hate or particularly love. It's just it's a decent enough starting area. I'm not gonna give it too much flack, but I'm also not gonna mindlessly glaze it. Then you have Hyde's Tower of Flame. I think this is the first part of the game where like I started having an issue, uh, and that issue is with the Red Dragon. That is before the I forgot what the boss is technically called, but it's basically Ornstein from Dark Souls One, or he looks like Ornstein. I mean, and to go and fight this boss, there's this dragon, and how do I describe this? So, to my knowledge, the only way to deal with this dragon, so like the dragon is on this like platform, and when you are far enough away, it will breathe fire at you, and of course, the fire is either going to one shot you or it's going to do like a crap ton of damage. And what you're supposed to do is once you're near enough the dragon, you're supposed to book it and beeline it to the platform and then fight it. My issue is that for someone that is just playing this for the first time, like I don't know how to like reset the dragon. To be honest with you, like from my understanding, I think that if I can go off of memory, the dragon is like sleeping at the beginning, but like once it's woken up, um, it's like it feels impossible to make it to that platform. Again, I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, it is what it is. But I just wish that that whole section was in the game. It's like you want me to fight the dragon, fine, I'll fight the dragon, but don't put this like fire breathing state where you just don't have enough time to make it to the platform. Um, and I just think that whole section is just total dog shit. Then you have No Man's Wharf. I'm I don't really like this area too much, mainly because of the sort of Viking enemies are just very, very annoying. They have these like crazy combos. Like I don't know, I was getting totally smoked by them. Maybe I just suck. Maybe it kind of also has to do with the Twin Blade. I really do think that the Twin Blade does not have the best moveset. That's just me. But No Man's Wharf definitely pissed me off uh, many times. I mean, I don't think it's like as bad as the Dark Souls 1 areas after Arnolando, but it's not my favorite. It's like a 4 out of 10 maybe. Then you have the Lost Bastille. I think the Lost Bastille is all right, I guess, but there's that section I talked about earlier with the pursuer and the dogs and the dudes in the watchtower. That alone brings down the area by like several points. But besides that, I don't really have any problems with the Lost Bastille. Admittedly, it's really not that long. I kind of like grouping it with Sinner's Rise. Like to me, Sinner's Rise just feels like an extension of Lost Bastille. Um, but Sinner's Rise is basically just a kind of a small walk to the boss of that area. It does have a recycled Flexile Sentry. I will say I do like how Sinner's Rise looks. It's a cool looking area, but there's not really too much going on. I don't got too much to say with Belfry, Luna, and Belfry Soul, which are like these sort of PvP areas. They're I don't honestly get confused between them. I know there's the one where it has the gargoyle fight, and then the other one. Um, I don't even think the other one has a boss. Now that I'm going off of memory. Regardless, both areas to me are kind of irrelevant, but I figured I'd mention them at least. Then you got Huntsman's Cops. Uh, Again, just kind of another mid-ish area. Um, Maybe slightly above mid. I don't really have too much problems with Huntsman's Cops. It's just all right all across. I mean, I don't think it's the most interesting looking area. It doesn't have any sections that just make me want to pull my hair out. Actually, with the exception of the run up to the Chariot boss, that run up is like old Souls games, complete dog shit. So at least that specific element of the area does suck. You got Harvest Valley, Poison area. I actually don't think this area is that bad for poison level, and it is kind of cool to sort of climb the tower. I will say these like headless ninja enemies made me want to smash my head into the wall. Again, it might have sort of had to do with the Twin Blade moveset. It's really not that great. But Harvest Valley, even despite those extremely annoying enemies, is it's fun enough. I actually think it's less annoying than Blighttown in Dark Souls 1, and it's definitely less annoying than Valley of Defilement in Demon Souls. So, surprisingly, Dark Souls 2, in my opinion, has the least annoying uh, poison area. Now, I will say, when I set Harvest Valley, I am also kind of including Earthern Peak as well. Like, again, to me, those are kind of just extensions of each other. So, everything I said just now applies to both Harvest Valley and Earthern Peak. Then you have Iron Keep. Once again, I think Iron Keep is just kind of okay. I do think what kind of keeps this area from being a little bit better is just the sheer amount of enemy density. This is actually one of those examples where I think that enemy density argument kind of comes into play. Like, especially again, that area sort of before Smelter Demon, there's just so many of these night enemies, and these guys are actually kind of hard to deal with. Like, they can do some serious damage, and they're fast. So, Iron Keep, I think, is sort of like with the exception of that Lost Bastille encounter, where the enemy density kind of, I think, kind of starts to become a problem. I still don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be, but yes, Iron Keep can definitely be an annoying area for sure. Then you got Shaded Woods. I think this area is a 0 out of 10. I despise this place. Anything in this type of game that makes something invisible, I am not going to like. I didn't mention it in my Dark Souls 1 video, but that forest to get to Sith that has those sort of not fully invisible but kind of invisible enemies. I hate it. I hate Shaded Woods. I don't like Priscilla in Dark Souls 1. I don't like the invisible bosses in Elden Ring. Anything where you're fighting something that's invisible, I hate. And I hate this place. This place just has two of the things I hate the most, honestly. You have a hard to see, nearly invisible enemies, and then you have an area that's covered in fog, so you can't see shit. Again, it's not as bad as, let's say, Tomb of the Giants, but I still think this area is shit. You got Doors of Pharaohs. I actually didn't talk about Pharaoh's Lockstones. I'm not a huge fan of Pharaoh's Lockstones just because, to my knowledge, there's a limited amount of these in the game. And, the whole mechanic, I think, is just trash because it kind of just incentivizes you just to look up what's behind these. And sometimes it's useless shit. Like, honestly, sometimes it's just useless crap. And I like how Doors of Pharaohs looks, and it has some cool looking new enemies by the time you get to that part. But I don't like Pharaoh's Lockstones in general. So, Doors of Pharaohs is kind of mid. Unfortunately, most of these areas are going to be kind of mid. The main reason I decided to go over them is just to talk about like specific things that really stood out. But I don't think Doors of Pharaohs is bad. It's just kind of all right. But it does look cool. It is a cool looking area. I'll give it that. You got Brightstone Cove. I do not like this place. I got quite lost here. There's kind of like these two different sections of Brightstone Cove that are kind of separated by this wall. And yeah, I know some people like this idea of like getting lost in this type of game, but I I don't. I don't like feeling like I'm lost and not knowing where to go. So to me, this was kind of like the first area at this point in the game where I was just kind of getting frustrated because I just didn't know where the hell I was. Like everything kind of looks the same. Um, and to my knowledge, this is the part I actually don't know, and I still haven't looked it up to this day. If there is a bonfire closer to the spider boss at Brightstone Cove, because the bonfire I had in my playthrough was basically the one from the beginning of the area. Like I'm pretty sure right after the Prowling Magnus fight. So yeah, you can imagine dying to the spider. I don't think I ended up dying to it, but if I did, it would have really pissed me off. So yeah, just overall, I think this area is below average. I'm not a huge fan of it. There's just a lot of annoying stuff. Oh, and you have these like wizard mage enemies shooting shit at you. Yeah, I don't like this area. I don't think it's very good. Got Grave of Saints. There's basically nothing to say here. It's just kind of this tiny area that I do also think it looks cool. But again, it's this tiny, tiny area with a couple of rats that lead to a shit boss, basically. And then you have the gutter. I really, really, I would have back in the day, I would have given this area 0 out of 10. But after playing through it again, I'm gonna give it like a 2 out of 10. I still think the area sucks, but I don't hate it as much as Shaded Woods, ironically. And to give the game some credit, I think it's less miserable than Tomb of the Giants, uh, especially with the not having to rely on this very specific drop to get the lamp. In Dark Souls 2, you have access to a torch, and you can light the torches throughout the level to make, in the event that you happen to die, to make your second trek through the gutter a little bit better. But yeah, any area where you just can't see shit and it's dark as hell, yeah, it just sucks. So I guess that gutter is kind of interesting. It's like this hellish, horrible. It kind of reminds me of Valley of Defilement, honestly. And these like horrible hell-looking areas, I always found kind of interesting. But in terms of like gameplay, I think the area kind of sucks. And you got the Black Gulch, which is again, it's kind of an extension to the gutter. I actually think the Black Gulch is one of the coolest looking areas in the game, and it has these cool ass looking, like hellish looking monsters. But they just the devs just have to fuck it up by putting 700 trillion statues that can poison you. I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know if they just put all these statues to like artificially extend the time you are in this area because this is basically just a hallway. I kind of wish, if I'm being honest, that they would have just scrapped Grave of Saints or even scrapped the gutter and made the Black Gulch its own full fledged area and just cut the amount of these stupid poison statues by like 75%. Um, but unfortunately, what made it to the end game is just this. It's this freaking hallway. Um, with 700 statues poisoning you. Most people just literally don't even bother exploring the area. I actually did, just because I wanted to, again, like I mentioned in my previous videos, since I'm recording my playthroughs, I do make an effort to play through the area as intended. There are some areas that are just so bad that I can't even be fucked to play through them. Um, but yeah, it's just a shame. It's just a shame because I feel like this area had some potential, and what made it to the end game, to the finished game, is just crap. We got Dragon Lake Castle. I actually think Dragon Lake Castle is pretty decent. I would say, and it's rare for me to say that an area is good, but I find Dragon Lake Castle to be pretty interesting. Um, it's it's a nice looking area, and it's reasonably sized. There aren't too many sections that make me want to again smash my head into the wall. Overall, I think it's a pretty solid area. I don't got too much, I don't have anything like that truly stands out that I'm gonna say like, oh, this is why this area is amazing. But I think it's solid. I think it's one of the better areas in the game. Then you got Shrine of Amana. Obviously, everyone hates this level for obvious reasons. I think that more than anything, if they would have just kind of cut back on the projectile enemies, I really wouldn't have too many problems with Shrine of Amana. Like, it is kind of a cool idea to have this like water area that like you can't see the edges. I actually want to give them credit for that. But what really just kills the area is just the projectile enemies. They're just so annoying, and they just make you want to not even traverse this level. And I wouldn't be surprised if most people just run past everything here because it's just very tedious to like systematically take out each individual projectile spamming enemy. And yeah, it's a shame. I do like how the area looks, at least. A lot of the areas in Dark Souls 2 are actually pretty interesting, like just based on how they look. But unfortunately, they don't play that well. So you got Undead Crypt. Again, another kind of cool area that's like the spooky uh, area underground. But I actually, besides me kind of liking, again, kind of how the area looks, the rooms with the bells, I hate this. I absolutely hate this. Um, you have I forget how is it that it worked. Like you have infinitely respawning zombie guys, and they can hit the bells, which spawn this other enemy, which is a pain in the ass to deal with. So again, I think playing through Undercrypt just sucks ass. But I guess I'll give the area a couple of points just for looking interesting. But yeah, I think this is definitely way below average. Like not even a 4 out of 10. I would say this is like a 3 out of 10 area. Then we have Aldia's Keep, aka Aldia's Hallway. I think this level sucks. It's basically one big ass hallway with not much going on. You have, I believe, two gotcha moments with the Cyclops monster sort of bursting through the door and either killing you or doing like 80% of your health. I hate gotcha moments in every single one of these games. This is why I like Kazan. This is why I like Liza P. I don't think those games have too many gotcha moments. I mean, it's kind of why I did not like Wu Chang because Wu Chang has a billion of those. But overall, yeah, I think Aldi's Keep sucks. 2 out of 10. Just pretty trash, honestly. Then you have Dragonary. This area is such a shame because it is once again a really cool looking area. And I almost feel like the developers knew that this area was just total ass because they literally let you skip through all of it. I just find that so interesting. Like the devs sort of like programmed this whole area, like these like caves and stuff. And surely maybe after they tested it, they were like, guys, this shit sucks ass. And they just put the zip line so you just don't even have to play through it. And I remember, yeah, that was another thing that was nuts. There is a statute that you need a branch of yore to actually just play through the area normally, unless you want to zip line and work your way back. It's crazy. Like this to me maybe I got my tinfoil hat on and I got my conspiracy theory thing going on, but surely the developers knew this area was total ass. Otherwise, why incentivize the player to such a degree to just skip it? I got Dragon Shrine, not too big of an area. Um, it's kind of whatever. I was gonna say that I don't really like it, mainly because I hate fighting that giant soldier enemy. Like the enemy is absolutely a huge pain in the ass. But I've mentioned before that what I like about these games is the combat, so I can't really trash on this area too much because it is mostly a combat oriented area. But I just suck against fighting that giant, the big ass soldier enemy, and yeah, I got smoked quite a bit here. So now we are at the DLC. I know there's different areas within each DLC, but I'm just gonna lump it all together. So we have the Shulva DLC, like the I forgot what it's called, the Sunken King, Crown of the Sunken King. Um, I think this DLC is okay. There are problems that I have with it, notably the sort of ghost soldier enemies that you have to destroy sort of their grave to be able to kill them. These enemies are honestly cracked. Like they are stronger than some bosses, like that you'll fight even in Dark Souls One. Like these guys are like Capra Demon levels of powerful, in my opinion. And there are multiple of them. And if you don't know where their corpse is, this area is just absolute hell to play through. Then you have the section where you have to rise these like towers, and you have all these dudes just shooting at you. Like I don't know. I thought this area could be a little annoying. Even though I said that the DLC is good and I can appreciate these areas for being long, and it could also just been me that I just wanted to finish the game. But again, it's not like I go to Crown of the Sunken King and get excited. I'm like, wow, I can't wait to play this. This is going to be so fun. But I'm also not going to trash on the whole area and say that it's totally a lost cause. It's just all right. It's decent. 5 to 6. I'm going to say 6 out of 10 because I do think it's better than a lot of areas in the base game. Then you got the Crown of the Iron King, the Broom Tower. I trying to think what area I would rather play through out of the three DLCs. I almost want to say that the Iron King might have my favorite level, but even in that level, like I mentioned earlier in the video, there are still many things I have issues with, notably that room with like 17 billion enemies. Um, you have the friggin' run up to Sir Lon, absolutely horrible. So there's that section two where there's that black phantom enemy that kind of like baits you by running to the bottom of this tower where there's like 10 trillion enemies. So that was also annoying. You know, one thing I don't like is the smelter wedge thing. I hate the smelter wedge thing. Like these statues that just, I forgot what they do, if they inflict a status or if they do damage. I can't remember, but I've never liked the smelter wedge mechanic in the Iron King DLC. But I do think that I would rather deal with the smelter wedge stuff than the crazy cracked enemies that are unkillable unless you destroy their sort of tomb in Sunken King. So overall, I would say for Dark Souls 2 standards, anywhere between a 6 and a 7 out of 10. I think it's one of the better areas in the whole game, to be honest. But there's still going to be annoying things in it. Finally, you have Crown of the Ivory King. I think this is actually my least favorite out of the three DLCs, especially since you have to basically play through it twice. Um, I forgot what it is that happens. Like you play through it once. Uh, you, I believe, after you kill Ava, the there's no longer a storm, and then these extra sort of areas open up, and basically Ava loops back to the beginning of the area, and pretty sure the game kind of expects you to do the area again. For that reason alone, I am not a fan of Ivory King. I don't like playing through this area. It also is the last DLC that I did, so I really wanted the game to be over by that point. So I did not really enjoy my time too much in Ivory King. I think it's the weakest out of the three DLCs. Now that I went through the areas, I'll go through the bosses. I kind of mentioned earlier in the video, I think most bosses in this game are honestly not very good, but I'll go over all of them for my discussion video. First, we have the Last Giant, which is basically the Asylum Demon of Dark Souls 2. I think it's a decent enough tutorial boss. I do think it's better than Asylum Demon, but it's not as good as some of the later tutorial enemies, like Index Gundyr, for example. So I think the Last Giant is just pretty mid. Again, 5 out of 10. Then you have the Pursuer. I actually want to give the Pursuer a good rating here because I think it's a great early game fight. The issue is by the time you fight the Pursuer, you're not going to have enough adaptability, or usually you're not going to have enough adaptability to have a consistent roll. So the most annoying element of the Pursuer is just sometimes getting clipped by his attacks because your roll doesn't have enough iframes. So it's kind of unfortunate. I'm also going to give the Pursuer kind of like a mid rating, maybe like a 6 out of 10. But just having to find him at a point where, your roll isn't online, which is just such a stupid thing that the game did, um, is a shame. But assuming you have a working roll, I actually think this is a good early game fight. Then you have the Executioner's Chariot. Not, I don't have much to say. It's complete dog shit. I hate these experimental gimmicky fights. It sucks. Yeah, 1 out of 10, honestly. Zero, maybe even 0 out of 10. Just actual trash. Then you got Looking Glass Knight. Again, I'm going by wiki order, so this isn't going to be like the order you fight them in the game. I think Looking Glass Knight is actually pretty good. I guess I can give a little bit of points to the developers for trying to do something unique with the Looking Glass Knight summoning an NPC, and that having the possibility of being a player if you're online. But I'm just going to be honest, for my personal enjoyment, I've never liked these mechanics. I didn't like it in Demon Souls where you fought the last boss in Tower of Latria. Like I just don't like these PvP fights, and I haven't mentioned it in my previous videos, but in this type of game, like in most Souls games, I hate the PvP simulator fights, like the fights where you're fighting an enemy that is basically a player, that's basically a character with the same move sets as you, the player. I hate these fights. I think they all suck. So, but again, going back to Looking Glass Knight, I think overall, like the overall package is that he's pretty good. Like slightly above average for Dark Souls 2 standards, is actually one of the better bosses in the game. But I just wanted to basically say that I don't care too much for the summoning element of that fight. Then you have the Skeleton Lords, pretty like forgettable sort of gang fight. I mean, it's pretty shit. It's not hard, but it's not exciting either. It's just rather boring. I swear, like these guys have not been able to get like a skeleton fight like correctly, because I think Grave Lord Nito is total dog shit. Then you have the Skeleton Lords, which are pretty trash. You have Wolnir in Dark Souls 3, which is also trash. So they really have been doing the skeletons kind of dirty. But I think, ironically, Skeleton Lords might be the least offensive out of those three. I think Nito is the worst, and Wolnir is just so boring. Like, I actually think Skeleton Lords is the best out of those three, as sad as it is. Then you have Flexile Sentry. I think it's a decent enough, relatively early fight. Honestly, I don't got too much to say. He usually goes down kind of quick. He does have that mechanic where if you take too long, the water level keeps rising. But throughout the years that I played this game, even when I played it for the first time, I never really took that long to kill to kill this boss for that to happen. So I don't know. It's just pretty mid, maybe even below mid. I don't know. He's kind of whatever. Then you have the Lost Dinner. I actually think the Lost Dinner is the best out of sort of the four I don't know if they're lords, but like the four great ones or whatever that you have to defeat in Dark Souls 2 before you go to Dragon Lake Castle. I think that the Lost Sinner is easily the best one. It's actually a pretty fun fight. It's one of the better bosses in the game. I want to say like 6 or 7 out of 10. I think Lost Sinner is pretty good. Then you got the Belfry Gargoyles. This is kind of funny because, in my opinion, this is exactly how not to do a gank boss fight. It's like Dark Souls 1 surprisingly got had it right. Like I praised this fight in Dark Souls 1 because first of all it's two gargoyles, and it's the fight is meant to teach you the player how to deal with two enemies. And what did the Belfry gargoyles do? They throw like freaking four of them at once. It's just trash. This boss sucks. It's perfectly encapsulates what most people hate about the game, which is just high enemy density and just hard for the sake of being hard. I don't even think it's the hardest fight in the game, but it's hard for the wrong reasons. Basically, it's hard because you're fighting like 4 to 5 enemies at once. So yeah, pretty trash. Then you got the Rune Sentinels. I think an actual good gank boss fight. It's kind of interesting to see how much they fucked it up with the Belfar Gargoyles and how good they did with the Rune Sentinels because I actually think that the Rune Sentinels are pretty good. You first start out fighting one of them. Once you defeat one of them, um, I believe the second one will come to life and will, if you stay on that upper section, you will be able to fight it for a little bit until the third one comes. So it's like, assuming everything goes as planned, you fight one of them, defeat it, and then you have to fight two of them. I think that they give you pretty good amount of room to fight them in as well. So I actually think Rune Sentinels is a very good uh, gank fight, surprisingly. Then you have the Royal Rat Vanguard. This boss blows. Not much to say. I died to this boss. I think maybe even twice in my playthrough. But in my defense, I really just think that Twin Blade R1 just really struggled against the rats, and I'm also just bad at the game. But regardless, whether I beat this first try or I beat this on my 700th try, this boss is just total trash. Just boring, and usually goes down with very little effort. Then you have the Royal Rat Vanguard. I'm sorry, Royal Rat Authority, which honestly, this boss would be mid, maybe even slightly above mid, if the devs didn't put four toxic rats in the arena prior to fighting the boss. Now, in their defense, they at least had the decency to put the bonfire right outside the fight, but they put four freaking toxic rats at the beginning of the boss fight. So, yeah, of course, this boss is trash. It's a shame, like I said, if those toxic rats weren't there and they maybe just gave the boss like one extra move, I think he would have been fine. But here we are, one of the uh, one of the worst fights in the game for sure. But it's a shame because I do kind of see the potential for it to be like at least decent. So then you got the Scorpioness, Najka, the Scorpion Lady. Uh, Kudos to the devs for making it kind of interesting. Like I don't think in any of the previous games you fought like a Scorpion boss. But unfortunately, she's just pretty weak. Like she's pretty. I say that, and I actually died to this boss. I think once or twice. But usually, like assuming things don't go south, this boss is kind of a huge pushover and doesn't really have enough crazy interesting attacks to make it stand out. I don't think it's horrible, but it's not like amazing either. Um, then you got the Dukes, Diofreya, the Spider Boss. I mean, it's pretty bad. It's also a gank boss fight. There's a bunch of spider mobs around the arena. Um, I guess it's kind of interesting because both opposite ends of the spider have their own head, so you can go to either side and hit the head to do damage. Uh, if we're looking for like spider bosses, I think Rom in Bloodborne is better personally. But I don't think this is like offensively bad, but it's not good either. It's like either a 4 or 5 out of 10, and I'm leaning more towards like a 4 out of 10, honestly. Then you have Mithra, Mitha. the Baneful Queen, the Snake Lady in the Poison Arena. Again, I would call this boss like maybe a 5 or even a 6 out of 10. But the fact that you have to burn the friggin' windmill so that you don't fight this boss in a poison arena is just so stupid. Like, obviously, I knew about burning the windmill, like, even on my first playthrough, because I must have seen some YouTube video where someone talked about it. It's just such a stupid thing. And for someone to play the game blind and just to go fight this boss and be permanently poisoned, it's just trash. But like, how are they supposed to know that you can take out a torch and burn the windmill to make the boss not total trash? It's stupid. Then you got the rotten. Rotten is pretty mid, honestly. It's like one of the most basic bosses in the game. I don't really got too much to say. Like kind of like I mentioned in Quillag in Dark Souls One, this is like the perfect encapsulation of a 5 out of 10. It's just okay. Then you got Old Dragon Slayer, which is basically Ornstein, or he has Ornstein's armor. This boss is pretty dog shit, honestly. I mean, he doesn't have much going on. He's not like egregiously dog shit, but he's not good. He's like a 3 or a 4 out of 10. Just pretty boring, and he just doesn't have too much going on. And it's kind of crazy to do Ornstein that dirty because he's a pretty iconic character in the first game. Then you got Covetous Demon. This boss has been memed to, like, by everyone. He's a joke boss. Basically, kind of just flops around, and most of the time he's not going to do anything. So I will say in Dark Souls Two's defense, whereas the dog shit bosses in Dark Souls One, like for example Bed of Chaos, will make you want to smash your head into the wall. At the very least, Covetous Demon has the courtesy to just be this easy, boring, forgettable fight. Then you got Smelter Demon. I actually think this is the best fight in the base game. I actually really like this fight. It's a lot of fun. It's a shame that the run back is so trash. But yeah, Smelter Demon's just fun to fight. He's got some cool sword combos, and I think once you have a working role, assuming you've invested into adaptability, this is like one of the more exciting fights in the entire game. So easily, like, I want to say even like top three best fights in the game for sure. Then you got Old Iron King, dog shit, not much to say. Like, they keep trying to do these like big epic giant monster fights, and they're always so bad. Like, you had the Dragon God and Demon Souls, and that was also trash. You got this friggin' Old Iron King, and he's also dog shit. He's just this like platforming boss. Not much to say, just boring and just, yeah, not enjoyable. Then you got Guardian Dragon. Honestly, I don't really like this boss very much either. He has there's a potential for the boss to just fly around for 10 years and you're just kind of standing there waiting for it to land. So, yeah, I don't think this boss is really that great. Then you got Demon of Song. I will say, he does look cool. He's one of the cooler, spookier looking enemies in the game. But he really only has like 2 or 3 moves. So, um, most of the time, like the only reason this boss is not 100% forgettable is just because what he looks like. But functionally, like fighting it, it's just like pretty boring. You got Valthad, the Royal Aegis. I think this is actually one of the better bosses in the game as well. I don't think he's as good as Smelter Demon, but he's just a decently fun humanoid boss fight. Um, Easy like a 7 out of 10 for me. Pretty good. Might even be top three best bosses in the game. But if he's not top three, he would be like fourth or fifth easily. Then you got Vendrick. I don't really like Vendrick too much, to be honest with you. Um, Again, he has like 2 attacks maybe. Really, what makes Vendrick hard is just that he does 10 trillion damage. Um, there's also like the having to get the soul so that I believe you can do damage to him. And like I don't know, it's just I just feel like this boss got done pretty dirty considering how important he is to the story. Um, I mean, he literally just has like one of the most boring move sets in the series for like a swordsman. Then we got Dark Lurker. I actually like the Dark Lurker fight as much as I hate the run back. I think Dark Lurker is a great boss. He's actually a great gank fight. he's just held back by having to do this annoying shit to rematch him if you happen to die. If you save Scum and you don't have to do this shit, I think Dark Lurker might even be the best boss in the game, or like the second best. So it's a shame that such a good boss is just partially ruined by just the most annoying run back in the genre, honestly. You got Dragon Rider. I mean, not much to say. This is, I mean, it's an early game boss, so he can't be too hard, but he's basically a regular enemy. Like, let's be real. Like, he's like to me, he's like the in between of like a proper boss and a normal enemy. He's just such a pushover, and there's not much to say. He's just below average. You got Twin Dragon Riders. Again, it's you just fight two of them this time. At least that one of them has the courtesy to kind of be ranged for the beginning of the fight, so they're both not just swarming you. But again, pretty below average. Apparently, Magnus and Congregation, meme trash boss. I mean, I swear this was just put in the game just to pad the game. At that point, it's just a bunch of regular enemies. Yeah, total joke. Giant Lord, below average as well, if I'm being honest. Most of the time, you can't see what the fuck he's doing because he's like 500 feet tall. So, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Giant Lord. Most of the time, he's just stomping his feet, and again, it's just hard to see what he's gonna do. Like, in my opinion, like there is such a thing as too big of a boss. Like when it gets to the point where you can't see what they're gonna do, for me at least, it starts to become a problem. You got Ancient Dragon, one of the worst fights in the game. Not much to say. Has 7 billion health, kills you in one hit. There's a cheese that you can basically just hug, like his right claw, and you won't take damage, assuming you don't screw it up. Um, would not blame anyone for doing that. It's what I ended up doing. Easily, like top three worst bosses in the game. So yeah, absolute trash. Then you got Thornwatcher and Defender. I think this is another decent gang fight. Um, Once again, like even outdoing Elden Ring, like I mentioned in my Dark Souls 1 video, Godskin Duo, or as I call them, Dogshit Duo, are the perfect example of what not to do with these gang fights. You can't just have two fast as fuck enemies swarming you. And Thronewatcher and Defender actually took what makes these fights good from Ornstein and Smelt and had a slow and a fast enemy to deal with. So I think it's actually one of the better fights in the game, like easy 7 or maybe even 8 out of 10. You have Nashandra for it being the final boss. I mean, or one of the final bosses, and how important this boss is to the lore. This boss was pretty dog shit. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's like as bad as like Covetous Demon or something or Ancient Dragon, but for it being so important to the lore, it's this boss definitely got done dirty in my opinion. So 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10, around there. Then you got Aldia, just trash. I mean, not much to say. This boss sucks. 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10. He's just teleporting all over the place. You basically get to hit him maybe once or twice, and then he like puts this like lava around him, and it just does a shit ton of damage to you. Just a very boring and tedious fight. Just not good. Now we're at the DLC. So we got Elena, the Squalid Queen. I actually think she's decent. She can summon uh, various mobs, and if you get unlucky enough, she can summon Falstead. But she actually ended up doing that for me, and it was really wasn't that bad. I do think she's kind of mid. Like she doesn't do anything that's like super exciting or crazy. So, but she's not horrible either. She's like again kind of like 5 out of 10, or even like a 5.5 out of 10 for me. Then you got Sin, the Slumbering Dragon. I actually think this is one of the better fights in the game. Even though he can kind of like fly for a little too long, I think this is actually a great dragon fight. But my one of my complaints is the durability thing. Like I don't know what it is, if it's just like his skin or whatever, but I always seem to have durability issues with my weapon fighting this boss. And dude, like having your weapon break on you mid boss fight is stupid. I'll never be a fan of that mechanic. But even despite that, I think this is a pretty good boss. Then you got the Grave Robbers. I already talked about these guys earlier in the video. Like 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, complete trash fight. Most of the time, you're just running around trying to separate them so you can like chip away at them one by one. Just exactly like this fight is like encapsulates what the internet says they hate about Dark Souls 2, and it's unfortunate. But yeah, not much positive to say about this about that fight. Then you got Blue Smelter Demon again. I like Smelter Demon, and I like how Blue Smelter Demon kind of changes some of the timings. Unfortunately, the boss is brought down by one of the most dog shit runbacks in the history of the genre. But if we're just looking at the boss on their own, I actually think the boss is pretty good. I'm glad that at least they have the courtesy to change a different color and change the properties of some of his moves. So Blue Smelter Demon gets a pass from me. I think he's pretty good. Then you have the Fume Knight, probably one of the best fights in the game. One of the more difficult fights in the game as well. He's just a lot of fun. Um, Not much to say. I mean, I just overall I really like the boss. I like how the bonfire is relatively close to the boss, and yeah, I would say top three best bosses in the game in my opinion. You know, Sir Lon. This is another great boss. Unfortunately, just brought down by like one of the most disgusting runbacks in the series. I do like Fumite a little bit more, so I wouldn't say that Sir Lon is top three, although he might be. Honestly, he might be. Like if I'm going by top three, like best bosses in the game, I think Smelter Demon should be on there, and I think Fume Knight should be on there. Um, Question is, you know, who gets that third slot? Like, I do think that Sir Lon is more fun than Thorn Watcher and Defender, so I will say that. And yeah, that might actually go to Sir Lon. I think Sir Lon is pretty good. One of the best fights in the game. Again, I personally I don't think there's any shame in safe scumming here. Like, it's such a shame that such a fun boss has to be brought down by you getting tilted if you have to do this shitty ass run back every time. So, in my opinion, safe scum this. It's just not worth to run through this memory with 700 enemies chipping away at you to actually get to the good part of the game. Then you got the Burnt Ivory King. I'm a little mixed on this one because I think that his fight is fun. It's just everything before it that I don't like. So I know it's supposed to be sort of this epic situation where you drop down with the Ivory Knights. I forgot what they're called, but the White Knights that that you freed through the level, and then you're fighting this like army of Black Knights. And you know when it comes from the spectacle side of it, I can see it, but functionally, like I don't enjoy this. It's just kind of annoying. But it's such a shame because I actually think once the Burnt Ivory King comes out and you're 1v1ing him, the fight is actually a lot of fun. So it's a shame. I might have guaranteed put this at top three if that first part of the fight didn't exist. Then you got Ava, the King's Pet. I think this is also a pretty decent fight. Ava himself doesn't really got too many moves, I will say that. But it's a fun, exciting, and aggressive boss fight, and that's all I can really ask for. Boss runback is also not too bad. So I think Ava gets an okay from me. I would say 7 out of 10, maybe even 8 out of 10. One of the better fights in the game. And then for last, you basically have a reskinned Ava, but you're fighting two of them, and they're in debatably the worst area in the entire game. So I feel bad calling the boss dog shit because, like I said, I like Ava. I like the Ava fight, but the run back is trash. And let's be real, like Ava is not balanced for you to fight two of them, in my opinion. You can make the argument, maybe you can make the argument like, oh, well, actually, like they totally are. But for me, I'm pretty sure Ava is meant to be a 1v1. So I think Lud and Zalin are, yeah, pretty trash. I'm gonna give him like a 4 out of 10. So, and that's all the bosses. I'll quickly have the section talking about the weapons themselves, the twin blades. So I tried most of them, and just overall thoughts on the weapon. I don't think it's very good. At least, and again, this is just for PVE. Hey, PvP could be totally different. I don't really touch the PvP in these games. So, again, this is like the disclaimer. This is strictly PvE. Okay? So, again, at the beginning of the game, I basically cheat engine in all the Twin Blades in the game. So, I'll kind of quickly go over each one. Obviously, you have your standard one. Again, what sucks is that if you do want to do a Twin Blade playthrough, like, I think the earliest you can get one is in Lost Bastille, which is like a little cringe. That's why I kind of just opted for the cheat engine method and just kind of hacked them in. Then you got the Stone Twin Blade. These can drop from, I believe, the gargoyle enemies right before the Looking Glass Knight, which again is like past the halfway point of the game. Um, just to quickly go over, like the regular Twin Blade is just pretty standard. It's actually like a Dex version basically, and then the Stone Twin Blade is like the strength variant of it. They both have the same moveset, I'm pretty sure. It's just one of them, the Stone Twin Blade is for a strength character. Then you have the Dragon Rider Twin Blade, which is what I ended up using. The reason why I went with this one is because it has some int scaling, so it also allowed me to play around a little bit with some of the spells, which was cool. And having a ranged attack did help in dealing with the more annoying areas. Um, One of the issues with the Dragon Rider Twin Blade is that it's just heavy as fuck. Like it's really heavy, and it's kind of one of the reasons why I didn't do the power stancing is because like to have two of these at once, it's just totally gonna cook your equipment load. So then you got the Red Iron Twin Blade. You get this in Tron of Amana again, super late in the game. In my opinion, I think this is the best Twin Blade in the game. The reason why I didn't opt to use it is because it is the only Twin Blade that has its own unique move set. And instead of having the twirly attack in the first R1 when you have it two handed, I believe it's either the second or third attack. And for me, like the cool thing about the Twin Blade is the twirly attack. Now, it's not a very good attack, but it is unique. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I didn't use the red iron one is because it's regular R1. It's just kind of like a normal swing, and I picked the twin blade because it's kind of like this unique, flashy weapon. So, but like it's strictly when it comes to like just how good each weapon is. I do think that the red iron one is going to be your best option easily. Like I think it's pretty strong. Then you got the curved twin blade. I believe it's really not too different from the regular twin blade. It's more dex oriented, and I believe it can bleed, if I'm not mistaken. But to get this legitimately, I mean, it says it's a rank one Brotherhood of Blood Covenant, and it's sold in New Game Plus Two. So this thing's just like a total pain in the ass to get. Again, without cheat engine, like good luck. It's just really annoying to get it. And once again, it shares the same moveset as every other Twin Blade except the Red Iron one. So, and then you have the last one, the Sorcerer Twin Blade, which I thought was interesting because it can be used as a catalyst to use spells. But the reason why I opted to go to the Dragon Rider one instead of the Sorcerer one is because I believe the Sorcerer one cannot be buffed by magic weapon. So, I figured if I'm investing points into intelligence and I have access to magic weapon, not being able to buff my weapon is just kind of a little cringe. And looking at the scalings here, the scalings are absolute dog. Like they're really bad. So I don't. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the Sorcerer's Twin Blade is like kind of a mean weapon. But hey, don't quote me on that. I could be completely tripping. So and here's just like a more overall opinion on the Twin Blade. I think that the R1 honestly kind of sucks. Again, I willingly chose it because it is a cool looking attack, but it doesn't really have much range. It uses an absolute shit ton of stamina, and you'll be lucky enough to get two R1s when you're two handing the weapon. Um, Another issue I encounter, which is related to the specific Twin Blade I chose, is like any boss that resists magic, you're doing like three damage. So like for me, I was doing like zero damage to Blue Smelter Demon, which is why I he killed me multiple times. because I just got impatient. Um, but it's just kind of the tale of at least the Dragon Rider one that I use. It's like sometimes I feel like it's just completely slapping and it's doing great, and then sometimes I'm like, dude, this weapon sucks. Like I kept it in the video, because the whole point of these videos is to show like my playthrough. But I died to Royal Rat Vanguard with this weapon. It's embarrassing. I don't think I've ever died to that boss in my life. I don't know what it was. Like I was just getting cooked. Like I would do my R1, and like the rats would just interrupt me. And maybe I'm probably just trash, but you know, I have never died to that boss before in my life. So that to me, like that experience, kind of solidified that like Twin Blades, they're not really that strong. Like I just don't think their moveset is that great. Now, once again, maybe the Power Stamps moveset is good. Um, and again, I think if you're using the Red Iron one, I think that weapon is actually good, like in general. But Dragon Rider Twin Blade, there's just probably going to be better stuff that's available if we're being honest. But it was fun enough to use. So overall, it's I would say below average for sure. I mean, maybe slightly below average in terms of how powerful the weapon is. I'll have this very quick session just to mention the fact that I am not a fan of weapons breaking and having to deal with repair powder. I do know that there is a vendor that sells repair powder, but I'm not going to sit here and farm that. I mean, I guess I'm just lazy, but I did want to leave that disclaimer that when fighting, I believe, Ava and I think Sin as well, the dragon. That I just had a ton of repair powder because I just spawned that in. At the end of the day, um, whether I save myself however 15 30 minutes of farming or just hack them all in, I mean it's the same result either way. But yeah, just wanted to point out I'm not really a fan of the durability system, or not the durability system. Yeah, I will say durability system. Just the fact that your weapon can break mid boss fight. Like I could see the argument for you managing that resource while traversing through the level, but like if your weapon is just breaking mid boss, I mean, it's just annoying. And I think that's pretty much it. I think I've mentioned everything I wanted to mention. Um, One quick thing before I kind of go in my summary, I had a hard time kind of wrapping my head around how equip load works in this game. So I should have mentioned that in the negatives, but I do like how equip load is just very easy to grasp in the older games. Like they're either light, medium, or heavy. And Dark Souls 2 works a little bit differently. I kept thinking that if I would be um, under 30%, I would get like a better roll. Like I'd basically be light rolling. And after doing a little bit of research, turns out I wasn't. Again, it's my fault. I mean, I should have known, I guess, but I do wish, I do wish the game just had a more basic like equip load system to like easily know where you stand and like what the benefits are for being lower weight. But besides that, I'll go over sort of my sort of conclusion slash summary of the game. I do think the game is unjustly hated. Like I see it all too often where people are like, "Oh, we don't talk about Dark Souls 2, you know." Like even like big YouTubers. Like I remember it was like some random Asmongold clip where he's like, "Yeah, we don't really talk about Dark Souls 2," and it's like, dude, like if you're gonna shit talk Dark Souls 2 to that degree, then you should be shit talking Dark Souls 1. At least in my opinion. And like I said earlier in the video, I would rather play through Dark Souls 2 than through Dark Souls 1. Even despite all of the issues with DS2, I think that DS1 has bigger issues. And the game does deserve some criticism. I mean, I think anyone that is on the other side of the spectrum that says that this game is like perfect or whatever is also tripping. The game has a lot of issues as well. But I do honestly think it is an improvement over the first game. I know that might make a lot of people mad, but I enjoy the game more than DS1. And it improved a lot of stuff. And had a lot of cool mechanics that, frankly, I think should have been carried over to the later games, like power stancing and even like the boss bonfire aesthetic system. So, um, overall, if I had to give like a rating, I want to give Dark Souls 2 maybe like a 6 out of 10. I think the game is honestly slightly above average. Maybe you know what? That might be too much. Maybe I would say anywhere between a 5 and a 6, depending on how I'm feeling that day. So, some days I'd be like, yeah, this game sucks. Other days I'm like, it's all right. And just to put a frame of reference, like I would personally give Dark Souls 1, and like this is where everyone, if this video gets any viewership, everyone will hate me, but it's just my opinion. I would give Dark Souls 1 like a 3, honestly, like a 3 or a 4. Honestly, I'm leaning more towards a 3. Again, I'm just not a huge fan of that game, but it is what it is. It's just me. And I would give Demon Souls like if Dark Souls 1 is a 3, I'd give Demon Souls like a 4. I do think Dark Souls 2, out of those two predecessors, is better, despite all the jank. Um, I think that there's some notable improvements that the game is just a more enjoyable experience. And again, the DLC as a whole package, is actually a great amount of content, and there are some really really good bosses in there. So, um, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I think the game is decent enough, but it's no masterpiece for sure. So that's it.